Presentation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our 2 o'clock session. In this room now we have Ken Fanta, a business relationship manager with SMPH, here to talk about we have the relationship first. Reimagining leadership for a connected world. Thanks, Ken.
Relationships first. Reimagining leadership for a connected world.
Thanks, Philip. Assuming they can hear me online and we're good to go. So thank you everybody for being here. Today we're going to look at a leadership evolution that I feel is transforming how organizations thrive in a connected world. For decades, leadership focused on control, hierarchy, and technical excellence. But the world has changed. Speed, complexity, and innovation demand something different these days. The new engine of change isn't technology or process, it's relationships. Strong, intentional connections create trust, resilience, and momentum. And here's the important part. What we're covering today it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to relationship-centered organization principles. That's why you see a penguin standing at the top of the iceberg. It's a reminder that there's so much more beneath the surface. Today is about giving you a glimpse of what's possible when relationships become the foundation of leadership.
Slide.
Before we dive into the principles, though, let me share a little bit about who I am and why this topic matters to me. I've spent about 30 years in IT, with 17 of those years here at UW-Madison. I've had roles from an IT trainer up to an IT director. And today I serve as the business relationship manager at the School of Medicine and Public Health. My role is about more than technology. It's about connecting people, ideas, and outcomes. In September of 2025, I actually earned my Master of Business Relationship Management, MBRM. I was actually the 38th person in the entire world to achieve this. This deepened my belief that relationships aren't a soft skill. They're a strategic advantage. I also participated in the More Leadership program in 2024, which challenged me to think differently about influence and organizational culture. Out of the office, I'm tending bees, growing hemp, hence the logo, and happily behind the wheel of my tractor. Because nothing teaches you more about interconnected systems like working the land and raising bees. And when the day's done, diving into Doctor Who, exploring new worlds, solving problems with curiosity and heart. One of my favorite Doctor Who quotes, which I feel really applies to a BRM, I am and always will be the optimist, the hoper of far-flung hopes, the dreamer of improbable dreams. All of those experiences shape how I see leadership today, not as control, but as connection. And that's why I'm excited to share with you the conversation today. So it's a little bit about me and why I'm passionate about this work. But it's not just about my story. It's about a bigger mission that drives everything we do as business relationship managers.
Slide.
This slide captures the essence of why BRMs exist, not just as a role, but as a mindset. Our mission is powerful, yet simple. Improve ourselves, our organization, and our world by connecting relationships to results. Let me break that down a little bit. Improve ourselves. Because leadership starts with self-awareness and growth. If we're not evolving, we can't expect our teams or business partners to evolve. Improve our organization. Because every decision we make impacts culture, collaboration, and ultimately performance. Improve our world. Because the ripple effect of strong relationships goes beyond the workplace. It influences patient care, research outcomes, and the way we serve our communities. And here's the key phrase, connecting relationships to results. Again, relationships aren't just soft skills. They're the engine that drives measurable outcomes. Whether that's project success, innovation, or resilience during crises. So as we move forward today, keep asking yourself this one question. How do my relationships translate into results? That's the lens we want to adopt. So if our mission is to connect relationships to results, the next logical question is, Why does this matter now more than ever?
Slide.
The answer lies in the fact that the leadership playbook has fundamentally changed. For decades, leadership followed a predictable playbook. Focus on technical excellence, maintain control, and communicate vertically through rigid hierarchies. Decisions were centralized at the top, and relationships, well, they were often treated as a byproduct of getting the job done. Today, speed, innovation, and resilience are non-negotiable. The old playbook simply cannot keep up. The new imperative demands agility, collaboration, and strategic alignment. Structures are flatter. Teams are cross-functional, and decision-making is decentralized, empowering people at every level. Most importantly, relationships are no longer an afterthought. They are the foundation for creating sustainable value. Without strong connections, even the best strategies will fail. This isn't a trend, it's a survival strategy for the world that moves faster and is more connected than ever before. So we've seen how leadership has shifted from rigid hierarchies to agile, relationship-driven models. But here's the reality. When organizations fail to make this shift, the consequences can be catastrophic. It's not just about missed opportunities. It's about real-world failures that cost lives, money, and trust. Let me show you what happens when relationships and communications break down.
Engineering catastrophe.
Most of you are aware of the Challenger disaster in 1986. It wasn't just an O-ring failure. That was the technical side. It was a failure of communication and culture. Engineers did raise concerns, but in a high-pressure environment, dissenting voices were silenced. The result? A tragedy that could have been prevented.
Medical errors.
Healthcare tells us a similar story. The Joint Commission found that 60% of unexpected occurrences involving death or serious injury are linked to communication failures. Not technical incompetence, but human disconnect.
Aviation precedent.
And aviation? This goes a long ways back. Some of you might remember how it was not fun to fly a long time ago. It's gotten better until recently. But in 1977, a study revealed that 70% of airline accidents were caused by breakdowns in crew communication. That insight sparked a revolution in the aviation safety culture across industries. The pattern is clear. When relationships and communication fail, risks skyrocket. Building trust and fostering open dialogue isn't optional. It's life-saving. So this is what happens when relationships and communication fail. But here's the flip side. When we get it right, the benefits are just as dramatic. Connection isn't about just avoiding disasters. It's about creating measurable value. So let's look at some hard numbers. Showing that connection isn't just a feel-good idea, it drives measurable outcomes.
Higher profitability.
First, profitability. Gallup's research shows that organizations with highly engaged teams that collaborate built on trust and teams built on trust and collaboration are significantly more profitable than those in the bottom quartile. This isn't theory, it's economics. Second, better project outcomes. Here at UW-Madison, I got to see firsthand during a partnership between urology and orthopedics. When IT and clinician teams worked as true partners, sharing ownership and respect, perceived IT support skyrocketed. That's the power of relationship capital in action. And third, health and safety. Studies show that hospitals with collaborative cultures have lower risk-adjusted mortality rates. Think about that. Better relationships literally save lives. So when someone asks, why invest in relationships? The answer is simple. Because they pay dividends in dollars, in outcomes, and in human well-being. You might be asking yourself, why does this matter beyond the metrics? Because relationships aren't just a business advantage, they're the foundation for collaboration, trust, and innovation. And when those elements are missing, silos form, risks multiply, and progress stalls.
Slide.
So why do relationships matter at the deepest level? The first reason is that collaboration beats isolation every time. Simple as that. When teams work in silos, information gets trapped, innovation slows, and trust erodes. Silos create blind spots. The blind spots create risk. When trust is high, teams take smart risks. They share ideas openly and adapt faster. They transform partnership from transactional, where we just exchange tasks with one another, to transformational, where we share purpose and vision. Strong relationships unlock strategic value. Relationships aren't just about being friendly, they're about building trust, which is the foundation for innovation and resilience. When trust is low, even the best strategies fail. Relationships, again, are not a soft skill, they're a hard requirement for a sustainable success. So this is why relationships matter. They move us from isolation to collaboration, from transactional exchanges to transformational partnerships. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about individual behaviors. It's about a fundamental shift in how organizations operate. The old paradigm was built on silos and control. The new one is purpose-driven, collaborative, and empowered at every level.
The paradigm shift.
We are living through what I call a fundamental shift in how organizations create value. So what does that mean? First, we're moving toward purpose-driven structures. So instead of organizing around tasks or hierarchy, we organize around a shared mission, why we exist and who we serve. Purpose becomes the anchor for every decision that we make. Second, there's a growing emphasis on the triple bottom line: people, purpose, and planet. Success isn't just financial anymore. It's about creating sustainable value for society and the environment. Communication is no longer a soft skill. It's a strategic capability. The quality of our interactions determine the quality of our outcomes. Fourth, we need proactive IT leadership. Technology isn't just about keeping systems running. It's about anticipating needs and enabling innovation before the business even asks. Fifth, empower decision-making at all levels. The old model of waiting for top-down approval slows us down. Today, speed and agility come from trust and distributed authority. Next, cross-functional collaboration as the norm. Silos are the enemy of innovation. The best ideas emerge when diverse perspectives come together. And finally, technology as an enabler, not the driver. Tools don't create transformation. We do, people do. Technology amplifies human creativity and connection. Think of AI, how it's amplifying our creativity. Maybe not our connection, but creativity. But it should never replace them. So I've outlined the paradigm shift, how organizations are moving toward purpose-driven and collaborative structures. But here's the question: what makes these shifts stick? It's not just process or technology, it's culture.
Slide.
And culture is shaped by the quality of our interactions. That's where the concept of relationshipism comes in, a theory that explains why trust, communication, and connection aren't just nice to have. Again, they're the foundation for success.
Culture is interaction echo.
First, think of culture as an interaction echo. Every conversation, every email, every meeting sends ripples through the organization. Those ripples accumulate and become culture. Second, the quality of communication matters more than the quantity. Poor communication erodes trust, while clear, respectful dialogue actually builds it.
Communication study.
Third, Mehrabian's research reminds us that communication is mostly nonverbal, 93% to be exact. Tone accounts for 38% of communication. Body language accounts for 55% of communication. Words, only 7% of communication. That's why presence and empathy actually matter. Fourth, relationships are the bedrock of success. When relationships fail, strategies will crumble. When relationships thrive, obstacles actually become opportunities. Fifth, trust acts as a cultural multiplier. When trust is high, collaboration accelerates, innovation flourishes, and resilience grows. And finally, we must move from transactional to transformational interactions. It's not about exchanging tasks, it's about creating shared meaning and mutual growth. So I've talked about relationshipism, the idea that culture is shaped by the quality of our interactions and that trust acts as a multiplier. But here's the challenge. How do we turn theory into action? Well, it starts with a mindset. Because the way we think actually determines the way we interact. We've heard that all day today, right? If we want transformational relationships, we need leaders and teams who embrace growth, curiosity, and learning.
Principle number 1.
That's why the first relationship-centered organizational principle is all about cultivating a growth mindset. Because again, the way we think shapes the way we lead. A growth mindset means believing that skills, abilities, and relationships can always improve. It's the opposite of a fixed mindset, which assumes things are set in stone. Here's why this matters. When two people with fixed mindsets interact, conversations often become defensive and frustrating. But when both have a growth mindset, the dynamic changes. It becomes energizing, exploratory, and supportive. So how do we put that into practice? Here's a simple behavior. Use failures as learning opportunities. Instead of asking, whose fault was this? Ask, what did we learn and what will we do differently next time? That shift turns blame into progress and builds trust. So that's the first principle, mindset. Because again, the way we think shapes the way we lead. Mindset alone isn't enough. Once we commit to growth, the next step is to prioritize what truly drives collaboration and trust relationships. Not as an afterthought, but as the first consideration in every decision and interaction. That's why the second relationship-centered organization principle is simple but powerful. Put relationships first. People before process.
Principle number 2.
Now, this isn't about being nice or being polite, as you might think. Courtesy is good, though, but it's clearly not enough. The principle is about consciously assessing how your words and actions affect the connections that make your work possible. Every email, every meeting, every decision either builds trust or erodes it. Here's an example. An accounts receivable team once sent what I'm calling a flamogram, an accusatory email to an employee, copying his boss and his boss's boss. The intent? To let important people know when others failed. The result? One email, 3 severely damaged relationships, and 1 talented employee considering quitting. So what does putting relationships first look like in practice? Well, before you hit send, pause and ask, how will this land? Does it build or erode trust? Could this be a conversation instead of an email? When we lead with relationships, we create an environment where trust fuels collaboration, and that collaboration drives results. So we just talked about the principle of putting relationships first and making them the lens for every decision and interaction that we do. But here's the question. How do we turn those strong relationships into real momentum for change? That's where the flywheel effect comes in. It's a powerful analogy of how small, consistent actions compound over time to create an unstoppable force.
Slide.
Let's explore how this comes together. An object at rest stays at rest unless acted on by an outside force. In leadership, the outside force is you. Relationships don't build themselves. Momentum doesn't happen by accident. It starts with an intentional effort, your first push. The push might feel small, but it's the spark that sets everything in motion. Think of a heavy flywheel. The first push is the hardest. It feels slow, requires a lot of energy, but each push adds stored energy. Over time, the wheel starts to move faster and easier. Eventually, the momentum becomes self-sustaining. That's what happens when you consistently invest in relationships. At first, it feels like hard work. Then it becomes a force that drives everything forward.
The analogy.
Your relationship building efforts are those pushes. Every conversation, every act of trust adds energy to the flywheel. Over time, you build what I call relationship capital. That stored energy keeps your team moving, even when the daily grind slows the engine. When challenges hit, that momentum carries you through. Relationships aren't just nice, they're the power source for resilience and progress. So how does this all work together?
Slide.
It all comes down to 3 interconnected flywheels that create leadership momentum. First, the self flywheel. It's about sustaining you as a leader. Your energy, your clarity, and resilience are the starting point. If your internal flywheel isn't turning, the others won't turn. Second, the reputation flywheel. This expands your influence. Every interaction builds or erodes your reputation. When trust and credibility grow, opportunities and collaboration follow. And third, the organization flywheel. This is where strategic impact happens. Strong relationships and trust at scale create alignment, speed, and innovation across the entire organization. These flywheels don't spin in isolation. They feed each other. When you invest in yourself, you show up better for others. When your reputation grows, your organization benefits. And when the organization thrives, it reinforces your own sense of purpose. That's the 3 flywheels: self, reputation, and organization, and how they feed each other. But here's the key. That momentum, again, it starts with you. If the self flywheel isn't turning, the others simply won't move. That's why your first push is inward. Before we talk about influencing others or driving organizational change, we need to reflect on what energizes you as a leader.
Slide.
So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a shared experience here.
Your first push.
We're going to take, in just a minute here, a minute of I time. This is what we call time for yourself, to reflect on these questions. When are you the happiest and most energized in your leadership role? What activities give you energy instead of draining it? Who do you admire most as a leader? And what qualities do they model? And most importantly, what impact do you truly want to have on your team and on this organization? So think about those questions. So you've got a minute. We're going to give you a minute to think.
Text. Take 30 seconds to reflect on your own environment. The energy for every other flywheel starts here. Where are you happiest and most content in your leadership role? What activities give you energy? Who do you admire and respect the most as a leader? What qualities do they model? What impact do you truly want to have on your team and on this university? The large metal wheel dominates the scene, while a muscular human figure braces and pushes against it with both hands. Motion arrows circle the wheel, and text. Push, push, push.
All right, time's about up. Now, here's what I want you to do. Here's the next part. Someone or someone's next to you. I want you to take and have a little conversation about what you thought about. I'd like you each to share what resonated with you up on this board and why you thought about it. So we're going to take a couple minutes. So find a partner or partners and have a little conversation for the next couple minutes, and then we'll come back together. So you got 2 minutes. Go ahead and have a conversation. There, 2 minutes. Got about 30 seconds left. So if the other person hasn't had a chance to share, please let the other person have an opportunity. All right, if we could bring it back, wind up your conversations. Come back here, we'll finish up the presentation. All right. So what you just shared with that person, this also creates a little bit of accountability because now you've shared something with someone else, right? This is going to be your first push. This is the energy that's going to power everything else you're going to do.
Slide. Proof it works here.
But before I go forward, I want to take a moment here and share an example that happened right here at UW-Madison.
The flowchart.
During an Office 365 migration back in November of last year for the Department of Orthopedics, we faced a major outage in the middle of moving email messages. Literally, Microsoft shut down while messages were in the process of being moved automatically. So, huge moment, could have turned into a whole bunch of crisis, right? However, users knew we had their backs because of the relationship capital we had built over the years. The strength of the relationship isn't tested when things go well, it's tested when things go wrong. And in that moment, trust carried us through. This is the power of putting relationships first. Technology failed, but the relationships didn't. This story shows the power of relationship capital. It carried us through a crisis when technology failed. But here's the question: how do we know if those relationships are strong enough before the next challenge hits?
Slide.
When you measure relationships in your organization, are you measuring satisfaction or health? Most organizations measure satisfaction, how people feel right now. Let's uncover what truly separates them. Satisfaction is here today, gone tomorrow. It's tied to recent events or outcomes like saying, the campaign delivered strong results. Feels good in the moment, but it's like a bouquet of flowers. Beautiful today, gone tomorrow. Relationship health is different. It's holistic and resilient. It measures trust, mutual respect, and the ability to work through difficulties together. Think back to the Office 365 outage we just discussed. The department wasn't satisfied with the outage, but the health of the relationship allowed them to navigate it with trust. A healthy relationship means both parties feel valued and committed to a shared vision, even when things go wrong, and that's what sustains momentum. So now you know that measuring satisfaction isn't enough. What really matters is relationship health. But awareness alone does not create momentum. We need practical behaviors that strengthen trust and collaboration every day. That's where the next slide comes in.
Slide.
Are you ready for your next push? Here are some practical behaviors you can put into action today to build stronger relationships and keep your flywheel spinning. Ask open-ended questions before offering solutions. Avoid why questions, because it can create defensiveness. If I was Craig's sitting in the front row. Here's an example. And I said, Craig, why'd you sit there? How do you feel? Because of him. Okay. If I said, Craig, what made you choose to sit in the front row? How does that make you feel? Which one makes you feel more likely to answer my question? The what, right? So if you can avoid why questions, you're going to create more conversations at the end of the day. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but if you can, do. Also avoid whose fault was it? Again, if you can avoid what, why, and whose fault was it, you're going to have a lot of great conversations. Sometimes it's hard to rephrase things, but you can do it. So open-ended questions shows curiosity and builds a growth mindset. Replace yes, but with yes, and. It may seem like a small shift, but it actually turns conversations again from defensive to collaborative. Encourage one-on-one conversations for more complex or sensitive topics instead of relying on group emails. Again, this strengthens trust. Turn your camera on during virtual calls. I know we kind of all don't like to do this, but remember, 93% of communication is nonverbal. So body language and tone matter. Yes, we are in a virtual world. We can still see stuff through that camera, which is useful. When you hear gossip, gently challenge it. Encourage direct face-to-face feedback instead, because gossip erodes trust faster than almost anything else. So these aren't just tips, they're relationship accelerators. Each one is a push that adds energy to your flywheel.
Slide. What's your next push?
So today we talked about the flywheel, about momentum, and about the power of relationships. But here's the truth. Change doesn't start with a policy or a system. It starts with a push, and that push comes from you. You are the outside force. You are the architect of connection. Every conversation, every choice to put relationship first adds energy to the flywheel. So here's my challenge for you. What's your next push? What's one intentional action you'll take this week to strengthen trust, build collaboration, and create momentum? Because leadership isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about creating it. And when you do, you won't just move the flywheel, you'll move the culture. Thank you, everyone.
Slide. Thank you. Questions and comments. Ken Fanta, MS, MBRM, KFANTA at wisc.edu, a QR code. LinkedIn profile.
Any questions? Or my moderator? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you.
In the video box to the upper right of the slides, Ken Fanta stands at a podium and speaks while wearing an orange shirt, with short light hair and hands resting near the lectern. A large screen and tall windows fill the background of the classroom or conference room.
A couple questions, slides back, you had a comment on there about measuring satisfaction versus relationship health. Can you give us some examples of how you would measure relationship health?
Yeah, so the questions you're going to ask, we're actually doing this in the School of Medicine right now. We're going around with a relationship health assessment is what we're calling it. And it's 20 questions covering 4 categories like communication, strategy, forget a couple of others, but the score adds up ultimately to 100 if it's a perfect score, right? The questions are designed to be scored numerically, but they're also designed to create a conversation with the business partner to really try to understand things. We're looking to take that as our baseline, and then 6 months to a year, we can come back with the same questionnaire again, because the questions are built in such a way to handle variability and handle the time. I would love to pull them up here and show them to you. My email address is up there. Please email me, and I would love to send you a copy of what we've created if you'd like to use it. And I've got a little bit of a training to go with it on how to do some of the more conversational pieces if you want to have that with people. Feel free to use it, modify it, adjust it. It's a great document, actually. I think it's a really good document that we're getting some great information from. Thanks. Yeah.
One of the pieces that Ken added to that, I think is really cool, is the questions have many versions, right? It's not one version of a question. It's based on the conversation you're having at the time. There's they're mostly say the same thing, but those subtle differences in how you ask it is really clear in the way that you wrote that document.
Okay. You want to do the one online or let Philip walk over? So when we're drained, what might we do to build inner momentum? That is going to be different for everybody. Okay. When I'm drained at the end of the day, what do I like to do? I like to go home and watch TV. Don't bother me. Don't ask me a bunch of questions. Don't ask me how my day went. Go home and watch TV. For some people, it could be going to work out. Maybe it's getting your favorite pet in your lap. You know, you have to find, unfortunately, what works for you. And it can take experimentation. And if you're fairly young in your career and this is all new stuff, it's going to take more experimentation. You may also find that as you get farther along in your career, it changes. So yes, I like TV, right? But I'm also, if I go home and I've got something to do outside on the tractor, set me on the tractor, I'll put my tunes in and I just go to town. Don't think about the world, don't care about the world, just go to town. So you have to find something that works for you that lets you disconnect from the struggle that you're feeling here. Because remember, we all have a job we have to do. We spend a lot of time here, but we also have a life outside of here. And you have to find a way to somehow disconnect from here. And it's harder for leaders because you take that stuff with you, right? But you still have to try to find a way to just be able to say, I don't need to think about that on a Saturday or a Sunday, especially, right? So you just have to find a way. Great question.
So I don't think it changes the methodologies or approaches, but something somebody said to me yesterday reminded me that universities are kind of a screwed up, wacky places. You know, you mentioned having better relationships increases profit. Not relevant to most of the university, right? You know, is there been any research or looking into universities as a particular setting? You know, are there studies that say, you know, better relationships improve research, improve educational outcomes? I mean, to me, it seems
Sure.
true because I want it to be true.
Right.
But you know, we're kind of a weird little
Right.
thing on the side
Absolutely.
compared to industry.
Right. Here's how I would think about it, though. Don't think of terms of profitability. What are we faced with right now? Budget issues. So while we're not a profitable, we hopefully operate in the black. This can increase when we have a tighter budget. Those relationships can help us get through that with hopefully, we can't add people right now, right? We've got caps out there. So how do we all navigate this together? Our relationships, our understanding what everybody's going through, that validation of what we're going through, right? Sharing that vulnerability together. So it's not necessarily profit. Let's just say it helps with the monetary figure. May not increase our profitability, but it's going to allow us to do more with the little bit that we have. So it may be a different way to look at it. But I can honestly say that having developed some relationships in the School of Medicine with some researchers in particular, their ability to get things done and get new things going is quicker than when they didn't have those relationships, when they tried to do it on their own, when we didn't have that communication, that way of going back and forth, right? I understood them, they understood me, we trusted each other, and we could move so much faster into the same direction. And we didn't have to have all these extra conversations about why and how and the why word. So it really does help. Actually, it's hard to put numbers to because you're right. It's an institution that really isn't driven by profitability. So just look at it from the terms of a budget and productivity, maybe. I think there was a question over here.
Back at the beginning of the presentation, you had a slide indicating there was a paradigm shift from the standard hierarchical org chart to a flattening out. And while everyone here in higher education knows that org charts exist and people report to other people who report to other people, how do you get management, upper management, C-level to buy into the flattening out philosophy where collaboration and sharing of the decision-making processes is in their best interest? There's a lot of people moving up the ladder is the goal in and of itself, the control and power that comes along with those roles. And for them to give up some of that power isn't necessarily going to be in their best interest.
Well, so it is a bit difficult because you have a person moving up, right? You below them are going to have a tough time influencing up, leading from where you are. So you're usually below them, right? So there's a power dynamic in there. But what you can do is you can do this for the people that report to you. Okay. So how does that look if you're a leader, you're a manager, you're a supervisor? How can you do this? A couple of different ways. This is a great question. I was hoping somebody would actually ask. We've got our hierarchical structure. How do we get to that flat structure? Well, there's a couple transitions in there. Instead of this way, think of it this way, just a single line. You to your employee to them. Another way to think of it, flip the hierarchy. Instead of you being at the top, and then these people serve you, and then these people serve them, put your users at the top. So now your help desk staff serves the users. You, who manage the help desk staff, serve your help desk staff instead of the other way around. Now, yes, you still have to sign off on time cards. You still have to do performance evaluations. So there still is a need a bit for some sort of a hierarchy, right? But when you start to flip things around, the whole idea is you empower your staff. So the concept that I have to be empowered, I have to be in control because I'm the boss, you start to change that in that you have all these people working for you. You're acknowledging that I have these people who are smart, they're talented, they're an infinite resource. Humans are an infinite resource. They're also a source of infinite innovation. I should use them. So it's not about me being in power and control. It's about how am I facilitating this team? How am I building that trust? How am I getting them to feel empowered and passionate about what we do? So it's starting to flip it. You can think flat. It's a simple, hierarchy to flat is a great way to just describe it. It isn't ever going to look completely flat. It isn't ever going to look, hopefully, completely hierarchy starts to go away. It's how it looks to the outside. We still have to have a bit of a hierarchy, but you can start to make those changes yourself. And that's kind of what happened to me. I had a boss, flat hierarchy all day long. It was great. I learned how to do that. I took that to my team. My team, someone that was on my team, has now taken that to where they go. So it is just by doing it, people seeing this and realizing what the advantages are that this can have, they start to take it where they go. Eventually, it will work its way up. But it's an open mindset that leadership has to have. And that probably starts with you. Do you have a question?
You know, thinking about quality relationships, there's a limit on how many a person can have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I looked at even if this room, I'd have to like pick what, 10? Does it matter who they're with?
No.
And is that part of organizational design that I'm talking to the right?
Well, it can at a point in time, but ultimately at the end of the day, so many people think that if I give something to this person, they have to give me something in return, right? But think of it differently. I give something to this person, they give something to that person, and now it comes back around to me. So your relationship may not have a direct impact, but your relationship may have an indirect impact on something. So you may know somebody. So I know Philip. I've got a relationship with him. Philip has a relationship with the CAO in Peds. I don't know her. I can go through him to get to her. So that's about influence. So there's the relationship piece, but then there's the influence piece that comes after that and figuring out how you can use that. Because you're right, you cannot have a relationship with everybody you need to have a relationship with. That doesn't mean you can't know everybody you need to have you should probably know. But it's all about those connections. And it doesn't take a lot to maintain them. A lot of times there's people in this room. Chris Last is a great one. I've known this guy for a long time. Long time. There was years we didn't talk. Doesn't mean I would think him and I have a relationship. He'll reach out to me if something comes up. I see something comes up that I know he's a part of that I reach out. The relationship's still there. We made the connection. We made the start. It doesn't take like a friendship. You're probably thinking more like a friendship or best friend. Well, there's teamwork within your own team. Absolutely. That's definitely more of a relationship that takes more work because you're developing and you're wanting to understand and validate what your team has and the members of your team. But when you start going outside of that, your core group, those relationships, there's more of them, but you can't put that much work into it. They're not your team, but they're important to what you do. It is an abstract. Relationships is a very nuanced concept. It's very abstract. That's why it's hard to measure. That's why it's hard to explain because it's going to be different for everybody. Great question. I think we're at time. So